I was just practicing the anthem in the garage when the door slammed open. Dale stared at me like I'd betrayed him. He squeezed my arm until it bruised, whispering, "Nobody in this house pulls attention-seeking stunts." He didn't know about the gold-embossed invitation on the kitchen counter, the paper I'd hidden under the dish towel, asking me to sing the opening at an event the whole town would be watching, and the signature belonged to the last person Dale would ever want to cross. My name is Lena Hart, and at 34, I've learned that small towns have a way of keeping you exactly where they think you belong. In Larkspur Ridge, that meant working the night shift at Radiant Recording, adjusting levels for wannabe country stars who couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. On weekends, I sang at the Blue Heron, a dive bar where the beer was cheap and the tips were cheaper, but at least they let me hold a microphone. The recording studio sat on the edge of town, a converted warehouse that smelled perpetually of coffee and broken dreams. I'd been there 6 years, ever since Mom married Dale Kincaid and made it clear that her new husband's stability was more important than my music degree from state. Dale owned Kincaid Construction, which meant he owned half the commercial properties in Westmont County, including the building where I worked. He never let me forget it. "You're lucky to have steady work," Dale would say over dinner, his thick fingers drumming on our kitchen table. "Most people with useless degrees end up serving fries." Mom would nod along, her eyes fixed on her plate. Ruth Kincaid, she'd taken his name faster than you could say, "I do," had perfected the art of selective deafness when it came to Dale's comments about my life choices. The thing about Dale was that he couldn't stand anyone in his family drawing attention. When I'd gotten a solo in the church choir, he'd made Mom switch congregations. When the local paper ran a photo of me singing at the Blue Heron's open mic night, he'd banned me from performing for a month, claiming I needed to focus on real work. He controlled everything, my car keys, my schedule, even commenting on what I wore to gigs. "That dress is too flashy," he'd said last week, eyeing my simple black performance outfit. "People will think you're desperate for attention." I wasn't desperate for attention, I was desperate for air. The Blue Heron was my only escape. Every Friday and Saturday, I'd take the stage at 9:30 sharp, singing covers of Patsy Cline and Linda Ronstadt to truckers and factory workers who just wanted to forget their troubles for a while. The owner, Marcus, paid me $100 a night plus tips, which I stashed in an old coffee can in my locker at Radiant Recording. Dale didn't know about that money. There were a lot of things Dale didn't know. Like the fact that Jerry, my manager at the studio, had been quietly submitting my demo to every opportunity that came through, or that I'd been practicing scales in the soundproof booths during my breaks, keeping my voice in shape for something bigger than bar gigs and wedding receptions. "You've got the pipes, Lena," Jerry had told me last month, sliding a flyer across the mixing board. "You just need the right break." The flyer was for a community celebration event, something about the Larkspur Guardians season opener at Summit Field. They needed someone to sing the national anthem. Jerry thought I should apply. Dale would lose his mind, I'd said, but I'd kept the flyer anyway, folded small in my wallet like a secret. That was 3 weeks ago. Now, standing in our garage with my cheap Radio Shack microphone and a moving blanket draped over the lawn equipment for sound dampening. I practiced the anthem for the 100th time. My voice echoed off the concrete walls, strong and clear despite the terrible acoustics. "Oh, say can you see, by the dawn's early light?" I'd been practicing in secret, using every moment Dale was at work or out with his construction crew buddies. The garage was the only place I could sing without him hearing, or so I thought. The envelope had arrived on a Tuesday, mixed in with the usual stack of bills and grocery store circulars, cream-colored paper, expensive weight, with my name written in elegant calligraphy across the front. The return address simply read, Helios Foundation, with a gold-embossed seal that caught the afternoon light. I'd opened it in the studio parking lot, hands trembling slightly as I unfolded the letter inside. "Dear Ms. Hart, you have been selected to perform the national anthem at the Community Week opening ceremony at Summit Field. This honor comes with our deepest appreciation for your contributions to the local music scene." The signature at the bottom made my breath catch. Marla Quinn. Everyone in Westmont County knew that name. She ran the Helios Foundation, the biggest charitable organization in the region, funding everything from the Children's Hospital wing to the library renovation. Her endorsement meant something. Her invitation meant everything. The ceremony would be televised on Channel 7. Northbridge Media, another major player in the region, was handling the broadcast. If I did well, if I really nailed it, there was talk of a contract for commercial jingles, maybe even radio spots, real money, real exposure, a real chance. I'd hidden the invitation under the spare dish towels in the kitchen drawer, behind the outdated phone book and expired coupons. Dale never looked there. Mom might, but she'd grown skilled at not seeing things that might upset the balance of her carefully maintained household. For 2 weeks, I'd been living a double life, days at the studio, nights at the bar, and every stolen moment in between preparing for the biggest performance of my life. I practiced breath control while filing invoices. I hummed scales while cleaning the mixing boards. And when Dale was gone, I transformed the garage into my private rehearsal space. The cheap microphone had been an investment, $39 at Radio Shack, paid for with tip money. I'd jerry-rigged a makeshift sound booth using moving blankets, an old coat rack, and some bungee cords. It wasn't pretty, but it dampened the echo enough to hear my true tone. What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. The anthem was deceptively difficult. Everyone thought they knew it, but singing it well, really well, required control, power, and restraint. You couldn't showboat through it like some pop singers tried to do. It demanded respect. I'd been studying recordings of the greats, Whitney Houston's Super Bowl performance, of course, but also opera singers, folk artists, anyone who understood that the song was bigger than the singer. My version would be clean, powerful, honest, no unnecessary runs or vocal gymnastics, just pure, clear notes that would ring across Summit Field and into every television in the county. The thought of Dale's face when he saw me on that screen kept me going through the nerves. He'd be at Murphy's Tavern with his crew. Like every Saturday during football season, the game would be on every screen. There'd be no avoiding it. But that was still 5 days away. First, I had to survive until then without him finding out. I'd already arranged to leave for the stadium straight from my Friday night shift at the studio. My performance dress, a simple navy blue sheath, respectful but elegant, hung in my locker next to my coffee can savings. My shoes were polished. My hair appointment was booked for Friday afternoon. Every detail had been planned except for one. I hadn't told Mom. Part of me wanted to. The little girl in me still craved her approval, her excitement, but the adult I'd become knew better. Mom would tell Dale, not out of malice, but out of habit. 20 years of keeping the peace had trained her to share everything with her husband, as if transparency could prevent his moods. So I practiced alone, in secret, letting the anticipation build like pressure in a steam engine. Each night, I'd lie in bed and visualize the moment, walking onto that field, the crowd rising to their feet, the first pure note floating across the stadium, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air. I was so lost in the music, so focused on hitting the high note perfectly, that I didn't hear the garage door open behind me. The microphone hit the concrete floor with a sharp crack that echoed through the garage. Dale stood in the doorway, his face flushed from either anger or the beer I could smell from 10 feet away. His work boots were still caked with job site mud. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" His voice was low, controlled, the tone that made my stomach clench. I stepped back instinctively, my hip bumping the workbench. I was just practicing. Practicing for what? He moved into the garage, closing the door behind him with deliberate slowness. "You planning another one of your little bar shows? Thought I told you to cut that out." "It's just scales, Dale, vocal exercises." The lie came easily. I'd gotten good at them. He grabbed my upper arm, his contractor's grip tight enough to hurt. "Don't lie to me. I heard you. The national anthem? You think you're gonna sing at some big event? Make a spectacle of yourself? Of this family? Let go. I kept my voice steady, even as his fingers dug deeper. Nobody in this house pulls attention-seeking stunts, he hissed, his face inches from mine. The smell of beer and cigarettes was overwhelming. You want to embarrass me? Make people think I can't control my own household? I'm 34 years old. Dale, you're not my father. His grip tightened, and I knew there would be bruises tomorrow. Dark purple marks I'd have to cover with long sleeves, even though it was still warm for September. I'm the head of this family. You live under my roof. You follow my rules. Then maybe it's time I found my own roof. The words were out before I could stop them. His face darkened, and for a moment, I thought he might do more than just squeeze my arm. But footsteps on the stairs leading to the garage made him release me. Dale? Honey? Mom's voice drifted down. Dinner's ready. He stepped back, straightening his shirt. We're not done, he said quietly. You're going to cancel whatever stupid thing you've signed up for, and if I catch you practicing again, you'll be finding somewhere else to live faster than you can carry a tune. He left me in the garage, trembling with anger more than fear. I waited until I heard the kitchen door close before I picked up the microphone. The plastic casing had cracked, but it still worked. I wrapped it carefully in an old towel and hid it behind the paint cans. Then I grabbed my purse and keys. Raina answered her door in pajama pants and an oversized Radiant recording t-shirt. Her black hair twisted up in a messy bun. We'd worked together for 3 years, and she'd seen me show up with mysterious bruises before. She didn't ask questions, just stepped aside to let me in. Couch is yours, she said simply. There's leftover Chinese in the fridge. I set my purse on her coffee table and rolled up my sleeve. The marks were already darkening. 5 distinct fingerprints wrapped around my bicep like a bracelet I hadn't asked for. Jesus, Lena! I need to document this. My voice was clinical, detached. Can you take photos? She grabbed her phone without hesitation. You want me to call the cops? Not yet. I need to be smart about this. As she photographed the bruises from multiple angles, I pulled out my phone and played the voice recording I'd started the moment Dale had grabbed me. His threats were crystal clear, every word captured. You recorded him? Raina sounded impressed. Started doing it 6 months ago, just in case. I rolled my sleeve back down. Can I crash here for a few days? You can stay as long as you need. She handed me a bag of frozen peas for my arm. But Lena, you can't go back there. I know. I pressed the cold bag against the bruises. I have something important on Saturday. After that, I'll figure out next steps. What's on Saturday? I hesitated, then told her everything. The invitation, the anthem, the television broadcast. Her eyes widened with each detail. Holy shit! Marla Quinn personally invited you? Jerry submitted my demo without telling me. Said I deserved a shot. And Dale doesn't know? He does now. Sort of. He knows I was practicing the anthem. He doesn't know about the actual event. I shifted the frozen peas to a particularly tender spot. He'll try to stop me. Let him try. Raina's expression was fierce. You're singing on Saturday. I'll drive you myself if I have to. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Dale's grip on my arm. But underneath the fear was something else. Determination. I'd spent too many years making myself small, quieting my voice to keep his peace. Saturday was 3 days away. I had bruises to heal, a performance to perfect, and a life to reclaim. The anthem had never felt more appropriate. Land of the free, home of the brave. It was time to be both. The Westmont County Courthouse sat like a brick fortress in downtown Larkspur Ridge, all columns and marble steps that made you feel small walking up them. I climbed those steps Thursday morning, my documentation folder clutched against my chest, Raina beside me for moral support. Temporary protection order, the clerk said, sliding forms across the counter. You'll need to fill these out completely. Court hearing will be scheduled within 14 days for a permanent order. My hand was steady as I wrote. Name, address, relationship to respondent. Each word felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Under incidents of abuse, I listed the dates, times, descriptions. The bruises on my arm had turned purple-green, a sickly rainbow that the court photographer documented with clinical efficiency. "Any additional evidence?" the clerk asked. I produced my phone. The voice recording saved and backed up to 3 different cloud services. The court officer took copies of everything: photos, audio files, 3 years of incidents I'd documented in a journal I'd hidden at the recording studio. Jerry had kept it locked in his office safe. No questions asked. By noon, I had a signed TPO requiring Dale to stay 500 feet away from me, my workplace, and any venue where I was performing. The sheriff would serve it that afternoon. "You sure you want to go back to the house?" Raina asked, as we sat in her car outside the courthouse. "Just to get my things, the important stuff." I had a list: legal documents, grandmother's jewelry, the hard drive from the garage computer. 20 minutes, tops. But I had another reason for going back. Something I hadn't told Raina. In my rush to leave Tuesday night, I'd remembered something Dale probably forgot: his old backup drive sitting in a file box in the garage, the one from his home office computer before he upgraded last year. The house was empty when we arrived. Mom at her book club, Dale at a job site. I went straight to the garage while Raina stood watch. The file box was exactly where I remembered, shoved behind Christmas decorations. The drive was labeled Tax Backup 2019 to 2023 in Dale's blocky handwriting. "What's that?" Raina asked as I slipped it into my bag. "Insurance," I said. That evening, while Raina was at work, I plugged the drive into my laptop, password protected. But Dale wasn't creative. His passwords were always variations of his company name and founding year. Kincaid Con 1998 got me in. Most of it was boring: invoices, contracts, correspondence. I almost gave up until I found a folder labeled LVFA Expenses, Larkspur Volunteer Firefighters Association. Dale had been their treasurer for years, managing fundraisers and community donations. The spreadsheets looked normal at first: equipment purchases, training costs, facility maintenance, but the receipts told a different story. Safety First Equipment LLC appeared over and over, billing thousands for specialized gear and training materials. The address for Safety First? A P.O. box registered to D. Kincaid. He'd been billing the association for fake equipment, paying himself through a shell company. 5 years of fraudulent invoices. Nearly $200,000 meant for volunteer firefighters, sitting in Dale's accounts. I copied everything to multiple drives, uploaded it to secure cloud storage, and then sat back, heart pounding. The Firefighters Association was beloved in Larkspur Ridge. More importantly, they received major funding from the Helios Foundation, Marla Quinn's foundation, the same woman whose name graced my invitation. Friday morning, I walked into the law offices of Reddick and Associates. Ava Reddick was Helios Foundation's legal counsel, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who listened to my story without interrupting. "You have copies of everything?" she asked when I finished. I handed her a flash drive. "Invoices, bank records, the shell company registration, it's all there." She plugged it into her computer, scanning through files with practiced efficiency. "This is extensive. How long have you known?" "I found it yesterday. I was looking for my personal documents when I left the house." Not entirely a lie. "And you're performing at tomorrow's ceremony?" "Yes, Dale doesn't know about the invitation. He's already tried to stop me from singing." I showed her the protection order. "I'm concerned he might try to interfere." Ava leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. "Ms. Hart, what you've brought me is evidence of serious fraud. The foundation will want to pursue this, as for tomorrow." She picked up her phone. "Let me make some calls. We'll ensure you can perform without interference." An hour later, I had assurances that security at Summit Field would be briefed on the situation. A quiet word to the district attorney's office had them preparing a warrant. They'd execute it Monday morning, after the ceremony, to avoid tipping Dale off. "One more thing," Ava said as I prepared to leave. "Ms. Quinn wanted me to tell you she's looking forward to your performance. She remembers you from last year's library fundraiser. You sang Amazing Grace for the donors. I remembered that night, a small, elegant event where I'd been hired as background music. I hadn't known Marla Quinn had been listening. Tell her. I paused, thinking of Dale's fury, the bruises, the years of silence. Tell her I won't let her down. That night, I stayed at the studio, running through the anthem one last time in the soundproof booth. My voice was strong, clear, ready. Tomorrow, Dale would be at Murphy's Tavern, surrounded by his crew, when my face appeared on every screen in the place. He thought he'd won. He thought his threats had worked. He had no idea what was coming. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear, the kind of September day that made football fans grateful. I'd barely slept, but adrenaline had me wide awake by 6 a.m. Raina was already up, making coffee and trying to hide her nervousness. Your escort will be here at noon, she said, checking her phone. Black SUV, private security firm that Helios uses for their VIP events. Ava Reddick had arranged everything with military precision. My arrival route avoided the main gates where Dale might think to look. Security had his photo, his truck's license plate, and clear instructions that he was not to enter the stadium under any circumstances. The warrant? I asked, sipping coffee that I couldn't really taste. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, multiple agencies involved now. Turns out the Firefighters Association wasn't his only victim. That construction company fraud you mentioned? The DA found 3 more shell companies. My phone buzzed. Mom. I'd been ignoring her calls since Tuesday, but this time I answered. Lena, honey, please come home. Dale's sorry about the other night. He's been under stress with the business. Mom, stop. I kept my voice gentle but firm. I have a protection order. He's not allowed near me. You didn't have to involve the courts. We could have worked this out as a family. We're not a family, Mom. We're 3 people living in Dale's house by Dale's rules. That's not the same thing. Where are you staying? At least tell me that. I'm safe. That's all you need to know. He's planning to be at Murphy's for the game, she said quietly. With his whole crew. You know how they get during football season. I know. I didn't tell her why that information made me smile. Northbridge Media had sent a production assistant to brief me. Emma, young and enthusiastic, arrived at 10 with a tablet full of notes. You'll enter through the performer's entrance on the north side, she explained, showing me a stadium map. Hair and makeup will be available, but I see you've already... She gestured at my face. Professionally done courtesy of Raina's cousin who worked at a salon. I'm ready. The anthem starts at exactly 1:47 p.m., right after the color guard presentation. You'll be on the field, center position, facing the main stands. The cameras will be... She showed me the positions. The LED board will display your name and invitation credit as soon as you walk out. Invitation credit? Standard for special guests. Performing by invitation of Marla Quinn, President, Helios Foundation. It'll be up the entire time you're singing. I thought of Dale at Murphy's, beer in hand, watching that screen, watching his victims stand in the spotlight he'd tried so hard to keep me from. At noon, the SUV arrived as promised. 2 security guards, professional and polite, who treated me like I was someone important. The ride to Summit Field took 20 minutes, winding through back roads to avoid game day traffic. Ms. Reddick wanted us to inform you, the driver said, that a Mr. Dale Kincaid attempted to enter the stadium through the main gate 40 minutes ago. He was turned away without incident. So he'd figured it out. Good. Let him stew in the parking lot, knowing he couldn't stop what was about to happen. The performer's entrance was a different world from the chaos outside. Quiet corridors, efficient staff, the distant roar of 40,000 fans filing into their seats. Emma met me with a credential badge and a smile. Marla Quinn would like to meet you before the performance, she said. If you have a moment? Marla Quinn was exactly as I remembered from the library fundraiser. Silver-haired, elegant, with eyes that missed nothing. She stood when I entered the VIP suite, extending a manicured hand. Ms. Hart, I've been looking forward to this since I heard your audition recording. Thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Quinn. Please, call me Marla. She gestured to the field visible through the suite's windows. I understand you've had some challenges this week. Nothing I couldn't handle. Ava briefed me on the situation. Both situations. Her expression hardened slightly. Dale Kincaid has stolen from organizations I care deeply about, but more importantly, he's tried to silence a voice that deserves to be heard. The former is a legal matter, the latter. She smiled. Well, that's why we're here, isn't it? A knock interrupted us. 5 minutes, Ms. Hart, Emma called. Marla walked me to the door. Sing for yourself today, Lena, but know that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be silenced. The walk to the field tunnel felt both endless and too quick. I could hear the announcer's voice echoing through the stadium. The color guard was finishing their presentation. My heart hammered against my ribs. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our national anthem, performing today by special invitation of Marla Quinn, president of the Helios Foundation. Please welcome Larkspur Ridge's own Lena Hart. Emma nudged me forward. That's your cue. Break a leg. I stepped out of the tunnel and into the light. The sun hit me like a spotlight as I walked onto the field. 40,000 people rose to their feet in a wave of motion and sound. The microphone stand waited at the 50-yard line, a small island in an ocean of green artificial turf. I kept my eyes forward, my stride steady, the navy blue dress moving with me like armor. Behind me, the massive LED screen blazed with my name in letters 20 feet tall. Lena Hart, performing by invitation of Marla Quinn, President, Helios Foundation. I reached the microphone and turned to face the main stands. The crowd quieted. That electric anticipation that comes in the seconds before the anthem begins. Somewhere in town, at Murphy's Tavern. Dale was watching this on a dozen screens. I hoped he was standing. I hoped his crew was watching him watch me. I took a breath, centered myself, and began. Oh, say can you see, by the dawn's early light, My voice rang clear and true across the stadium. No tremor, no hesitation. Every practice session in that garage, every stolen moment perfecting each note, poured through me now. The microphone carried my voice to every corner of Summit Field and beyond, into thousands of homes across Westmont County. What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. Movement near the VIP entrance caught my eye. Security guards, 4 of them, escorting someone toward the field barrier. Even from this distance, I recognized Dale's swagger, the way he gestured angrily with his hands. He was shouting something, his face red with rage, but the music drowned him out. Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, file. The guards had him now, firm hands on his shoulders as he struggled against their grip. One of them spoke into a radio. I kept singing, my voice never wavering, even as I watched my stepfather's public meltdown from the corner of my eye. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. A uniformed police officer appeared, then another. They flanked Dale as the security guards stepped back. I saw the moment he spotted the handcuffs. His whole body went rigid, his mouth forming words I couldn't hear but could easily imagine. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air. The high note soared effortlessly from my throat, pure and powerful. The crowd was transfixed, unaware of the drama playing out at the field's edge. But the cameras were catching everything. The main broadcast stayed on me, but I knew the production team was recording every angle, including the one showing Dale Kincaid being arrested at the exact moment his stepdaughter sang on regional television. Gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. The officers had him in custody now, hands cuffed behind his back. As they led him away, he had to pass directly under the LED screen, under Marla Quinn's name in those giant golden letters, the woman whose foundation he'd stolen from, the woman who'd invited me here. The poetry of it was almost too perfect. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave. I held the note, letting it build, letting it fill every inch of the stadium. In my peripheral vision, I saw Dale being placed in the back of a police cruiser. The warrant wasn't supposed to be served until Monday, but apparently assaulting security guards and disturbing the peace at a public event had moved up the timeline. O'er the land of the free. I pulled back for the final line, bringing it home with quiet power rather than vocal gymnastics. This was about respect. For the song, for the moment, for myself. And the home of the brave. The last note hung in the air for a heartbeat before the stadium erupted. 40,000 people applauding, cheering, some wiping their eyes. I stood still for a moment, absorbing it all. The sound, the energy, the freedom of finally being heard. On the LED screen, my name still blazed above the field. In the parking lot, Dale was being driven away in the back of a police car, and in Murphy's Tavern. His entire crew had just witnessed both triumphs unfold on live television. I bowed once, deeply, then walked off the field with my head high. Emma met me in the tunnel, her face glowing with excitement. "That was incredible, did you see?" "I saw," I said, surprised to find I was smiling. "I saw everything." My phone was already buzzing with messages. Jerry from the studio. "You killed it." Raina. "I'm crying actual tears." And one from Ava Reddick. "Search warrant executed early due to stadium incident. Monday's meeting still on. Congratulations on a beautiful performance." There was even one from Mom. "I saw you on TV. You looked beautiful. I'm at home." Just that, but it was enough for now. Emma was talking about the Northbridge media executives wanting to meet, about commercial opportunities, about recording contracts. I nodded, half listening, still riding the high of the moment. "Oh, and Ms. Hart?" Emma pulled out her tablet. "The video of your performance is already trending. The production team says the overhead shot of the arrest happening during your high note is, well, they called it cinematic gold." I thought of Dale, sitting in a holding cell, knowing that his humiliation had been broadcast to everyone he'd ever tried to impress, knowing that the woman he'd tried to control had stood in front of 40,000 people and soared. "Good," I said. "I hope it goes viral." The roar from the crowd was deafening as I emerged from the tunnel for the final bow. The Helios Foundation had arranged for me to return to the field during a timeout in the first quarter, a victory lap of sorts. This time, I walked with confidence, no longer the woman who'd hidden her voice in a garage. The LED screen lit up again with my name, and below it, a new message. "Thank you, Lena Hart, for a stunning performance." The crowd rose to their feet once more, and I waved, taking in every face, every smile, every camera phone pointed my way. Near the VIP section, Marla Quinn stood applauding, her expression satisfied. She'd orchestrated this perfectly, not just my performance, but the timing of everything. I learned later that she'd personally called the district attorney that morning after receiving intel about Dale's plan to disrupt the ceremony. The fraud charges were already filed. His arrest at the stadium simply expedited what was already in motion. As I walked the sideline, shaking hands with players and coaches, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I glanced at it quickly. "Ms. Hart, this is Connor Walsh from Northbridge Media. Your performance was extraordinary. We'd like to discuss an exclusive contract for our new campaign. Are you free Monday?" Another text, this one from Jerry at Radiant Recording. "Local news wants an interview. Channel 7 is already calling you the voice that brought down a corrupt official. You're famous, kid." The voice that brought down a corrupt official. It had a ring to it, though I knew the truth was both simpler and more complex. I hadn't brought down Dale. He'd done that himself with his greed and cruelty. I'd simply refused to let him silence me anymore. The security escort led me back through the VIP area where a small reception was underway. Sponsors, city officials, prominent business owners, the people Dale had spent years trying to impress. They all wanted to shake my hand, to tell me how moved they'd been by my performance. "That was beautiful," said Marcus Henley, who owned the largest construction firm in the county. Dale's biggest competitor. Though I have to say, the impromptu arrest added quite the dramatic flair. That wasn't planned, I said honestly. No? Well, couldn't have timed it better. Dale Kincaid getting arrested on live TV while his stepdaughter performs for Marla Quinn? He shook his head. He'll never recover from this, socially or professionally. Through the suite's windows, I could see the field where I'd just stood. The game had resumed, life moving forward as it always does. But for me, everything had changed in those 3 minutes and 7 seconds. Lena, Marla Quinn appeared at my elbow, graceful as always. Walk with me? We stepped onto a private balcony overlooking the stadium. The September air was warm but carried the promise of autumn. Ava tells me you've been quite thorough in documenting Dale's activities, she said. I found what I found. The authorities will handle the rest. Indeed they will. The Firefighters Association alone will be pressing charges for over $200,000 in stolen funds. That's before we get to the construction fraud, tax evasion, and whatever else they uncover. She turned to face me. You know he'll likely serve significant time. I know. And your mother? I thought of Mom's text, sitting at home alone while her husband sat in a cell. She'll have to make her own choices. I can't make them for her anymore. Wise, Marla smiled. Now, about your future. Northbridge Media isn't the only group interested. I've had calls from 3 recording labels since your performance. You have options, Lena, real ones. I don't even know where to start. Start by believing you deserve them. The rest will follow. We watched the game in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Marla spoke again. That night at the library fundraiser, you sang Amazing Grace. I'd just lost my husband, and your voice. It reminded me that beauty exists even in grief. I told myself that if I ever had the chance to give you a bigger stage, I would. You did more than that. You gave me my freedom. No, she corrected gently. You took your freedom. I simply provided the venue. My phone buzzed again. Raina sending photos from Murphy's Tavern. Someone had filmed the moment Dale's arrest appeared on screen. In the grainy video, you could see his construction crew slowly stepping away from him, their faces a mix of shock and disgust. His carefully cultivated image, built on their respect and fear, crumbling in real time. The final image was a screenshot from the news, a split screen, me singing on one side, Dale being led away in handcuffs on the other. The headline read, Local Woman's Triumphant Anthem Performance Coincides with Stepfather's Arrest for Fraud. Cinematic gold indeed, Marla murmured, looking at my phone, though I prefer to think of it as poetic justice. The first quarter ended with the Larkspur Guardians ahead by 7. Fans streamed toward concessions, many still talking about the anthem, pulling up videos on their phones. My performance would be shared thousands of times before the day ended. Each view another person hearing my voice because I'd refused to hide it. I should go, I said finally. Let you enjoy the game. Before you do. Marla reached into her purse, pulling out a business card. Victoria Chen at Apex Artist Management. She's the best in the business. Tell her I sent you. I took the card, running my thumb over the embossed letters. A new name. A new possibility, a new life opening before me. The final notes of my performance still echoed through Summit Field as white confetti cannons erupted, painting the sky in a celebration that felt personally orchestrated. I stood at the edge of the field one last time, watching the paper snow drift down like pieces of my old life falling away. Security escorted me to the parking lot where Raina waited with the car. As we drove past the spot where Dale had been arrested just 20 minutes earlier, I saw no trace of the scene, just empty asphalt and a few curious fans still milling about. It was as if he'd been erased from the stadium entirely. Ava just texted, Raina said, glancing at her phone at a red light. Search warrant at Dale's office turned up more evidence. 3 more shell companies. Fake invoices going back 8 years. The FBI might get involved. I leaned back in the passenger seat, feeling strangely calm. Through the window, I watched Larkspur Ridge pass by, the same streets I'd driven for years. But everything looked different now, brighter, fuller of possibility. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Messages from numbers I didn't recognize, reporters wanting statements, job offers pouring in. But the one that made me smile was from Jerry. Studio's already got 3 bookings asking specifically for that engineer who sang the anthem. Looks like you're about to get very busy. That evening, Channel 7 ran a special segment. They'd put together a package with multiple angles of my performance, including aerial footage that showed the exact moment Dale was arrested, a tiny drama playing out at the edge of my triumph. The reporter called it a stunning confluence of justice and artistry. But the image that would become iconic was simpler, me at the microphone, head tilted back on the high note, while behind me the LED screen blazed with Marla Quinn's name, the woman Dale had stolen from, the woman who'd given me my stage, the perfect circular justice of it all. In a dramatic turn, the anchor reported, Dale Kincaid, arrested during his stepdaughter's performance, faces multiple felony charges including embezzlement, fraud, and theft exceeding $400,000 from various charitable organizations. If convicted on all counts, he could face up to 20 years in prison. 20 years. I tried to imagine it. 2 decades without his controlling presence, his cruel words, his violent grip. It seemed both too much and not enough. Mom finally called as I was getting ready for bed in Raina's guest room. I saw everything, she said quietly. The performance, the arrest, the news report. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. Are you? Her voice held a sharpness I'd never heard before, because it felt very orchestrated. I didn't orchestrate Dale stealing from charities. Mom, I just refused to let him steal my voice too. Silence stretched between us. Then, I'm putting the house on the market. My sister in Phoenix says I can stay with her while I figure things out. That's good. Mom, a fresh start. Maybe you could visit when things settle down. Maybe, I said, though we both knew it would be a long time before things settled into any pattern we could recognize. The next morning, Monday, I sat in Ava Reddick's office as she walked me through what would happen next. Grand jury indictments, asset forfeiture, a trial that would drag Dale's crimes into the bright light of public scrutiny. You may be called to testify, she warned, about the abuse, the control, what you witnessed in the home. I'll testify, I said without hesitation. I'm done being silent. My phone lit up with a text from Victoria Chen, the manager Marla had recommended. Watched your performance 15 times. We need to talk. How's Thursday for lunch? Later that afternoon, I stood in the empty garage of the house I'd shared with Mom and Dale. The moving truck had taken what little I wanted, mostly just clothes and personal items. The makeshift sound booth I'd created with blankets and bungee cords was gone, leaving only bare walls and oil stains. I found my broken Radio Shack microphone behind the paint cans where I'd hidden it. The cracked plastic caught the light from the single bulb overhead. I held it for a moment, remembering all those secret practice sessions, then set it on Dale's workbench with a note. Your house, your rules, your silence, not mine anymore. The video of my performance had gone viral by Monday evening. Woman sings anthem while abusive stepfather arrested on live TV had been shared over 1 million times. The comment section was full of support, people sharing their own stories of escape and triumph. Connor Walsh from Northbridge Media called personally, "We want you as the voice of our new campaign. Find your voice. It's perfect, don't you think?" I thought of all the years I'd whispered, all the times I'd made myself small, all the music I'd swallowed rather than let it soar. Then I thought of standing on that field, 40,000 people on their feet, my voice carrying across the stadium while Dale's world crumbled beneath Marla Quinn's name. Yes, I told Connor, it's perfect. The last text of the day came from an unknown number. When I opened it, it was a photo from inside the county jail. Dale's mugshot, forwarded by someone who thought I'd want to see. His face was haggard, his eyes hollow. The man who'd controlled my life for 6 years reduced to a number on a booking sheet. I deleted it without saving. He'd taken up enough space in my phone, my home, my head. The only sound that mattered now was my voice, finally free, finally heard, finally mine. The anthem was over. My real song was just beginning. Thank you for listening to this story of courage and vindication. Where are you tuning in from today? I'd love to hear from listeners around the world. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Lena's position? Your stories and perspectives make this community special.